1977 in Memphis. Elvis Presley sat alone at the piano in the recording studio with the lights turned down. His hands were shaking above the keys. The band had already left for the night, but the rock and roll king wouldn't go. Not yet. There was one song he needed to record but had been putting it off for weeks. Felton Jarvis, Elvis's producer, watched from the box as he started to play. In an instant, the singer's eyes were filled with tears. Early that day, Elvis told him, "This is the saddest song I've ever heard." The next part would become one of the most moving moments in music history. Someone recorded something that no one there would ever forget. Blues singer Red West came to Grayson with a demo tape hidden under his jacket on a wet Tuesday afternoon in January 1977. Red had been one of Elvis's best friends since high school and a member of the famous Memphis Mafia. However, after Elvis fired him the previous year, their friendship had grown tense. Red knew Elvis had to hear this song, though. Austin Frazier and Arthur Leo Owens wrote the song. A sad ballad about lost love, sorrow, and the desperate desire to go back in time. Something changed in the air when Red played it for Elvis in the Jungle Room, which had all sorts of strange decorations and a green shag carpet that Elvis loved. Elvis was sitting still, and his eyes were fixed on something outside the walls of his house. "Play it again," Elvis said softly when the song was over. Red rewound the tape. There was no talking for 3 more times. Ginger Alden, who was dating Elvis at the time, walked in during the 4th repeat and knew right away that something wasn't right. "Elvis," she said in a low voice. He didn't answer, he didn't even notice that she was there. He had been sad before, she knew. As his health got worse, it happened more often. But this wasn't like that. This was terrible. When the tape finally stopped, Elvis looked at Red and looked like he was going to cry. He said, "That's it. That's everything I've been trying to say my whole life, right there in 3 minutes." Red West got a chill down his spine because he had seen Elvis at his happiest and saddest times. He had seen the birth of rock and roll and seen his friend fight with fame, drugs, and being alone. He knew that this song would either make Elvis whole again or break him. Elvis suddenly stood up and said, "I need to record this. Talk to Felton. Let him know that tomorrow we're going to the studio." But Elvis didn't show up the next day. He made excuses when he called the studio. He didn't feel good. He was tired because of the medicine. He had to take more time to learn the song. There was only one truth, and it hurt more. Elvis was scared. He was scared of what the song would make him feel. They were afraid that he would start crying again once he sang it. To understand how deeply this song moved Elvis, you need to know what was going on in his life in the first few months of 1977. Elvis Presley was trapped by his own fame when he was 42 years old. The young, daring rocker whose hip moves shocked the world had turned into a fat stereotype who performed in Las Vegas wearing sequin jumpsuits. The split from his first wife, Priscilla, happened 4 years ago. He had dated a lot of women since then, but he was still very lonely. His daughter Lisa Marie was the love of his life, but they didn't get to spend much time together because of custody issues and his busy traveling schedule. His health was quickly getting worse because he was abusing prescription drugs, but his supporters and yes men wouldn't talk to him about it. He used to be the best in American pop music, but now his career was just a nostalgia act. It was a song that Red West brought him. It was about a man who thinks back on his life and remembers all the times he made bad decisions, hurt people, and wasted love. It was about how heavy sorrow can be and how impossible it is to get a second chance. It was more than just a song for Elvis. It looked like a mirror. After hearing it for the first time, Elvis became obsessed for weeks. He played the demo over and over again, learning every little detail and tone. The people who worked at Graceland would hear it ringing through the halls at 3 a.m. when Elvis couldn't sleep. Charlie Hadge, one of Elvis's close friends and backup singers, later said that he saw him crying in the dark living room while the demo played over and over again. After many years, Charlie said in an interview that he sought his whole life in that song. Everything, his mom, Priscilla, his job, his mistakes, and so on. Even though the song wasn't written by anyone who knew him, it felt like it was written just for him. When Priscilla Presley brought Lisa Marie to see her, she saw the change for herself. Her memory told her that he seemed weaker than usual. He kept saying that he had lost a lot of time and chosen the wrong things. He couldn't handle how bad he felt. The song kept coming back to haunt Graceland and remind Elvis of all the things he thought he'd lost. Dr. Nick, Elvis's personal doctor, became worried about how depressed he was getting and tried to get him to stop recording. He told Elvis straight out, "This song isn't good for you. It's pulling you down." Elvis wouldn't let it go, though. "I have to sing it," he urged. "Everyone needs to know. They need to get it." When asked what people needed to understand, Elvis never quite understood. Maybe the fame made them feel alone. It could have been the price of being famous. Or maybe it was easier to remember that even the king of rock and roll was human and could break and drown in sadness. Elvis finally decided to go into the studio 3 weeks after Red West played him the demo for the first time. It was late at night on February 2, 1977. Elvis always liked to record late at night, when it was quiet and he could concentrate. The session was set up at Grayson's studio, which used to be a jungle room and was recently used to record some of his most emotional music. The usual group of people were there. Felton Jarvis produced the album, with James Burton on guitar, Jerry Sheff on bass, Ronnie Tutt on drums, and the backing singers such as Kathy Westmoreland, who had become one of Elvis's favorite singers because of her sweet duets. That night, though, things were different. Everything they knew about the song and how it made Elvis feel made them feel revered and scared when they got there. Elvis showed up around midnight. He was inside, but he was wearing a black tracksuit and shades. The medicine made his face puffy, and he moved slowly, like he was much older than 42. He didn't say much, he just nodded at his players and sat down at the mic. There was none of the normal joking and chatter that usually comes before an Elvis show. Everyone knew this was a big deal. After Felton counted them in, the first take began. The first lines were filled with Elvis's powerful voice, which was still strong even though he was getting older. But after 20 seconds, his voice broke. The band stopped when he waved his hand. He said, "Sorry, boys," in a voice that was almost a whisper. "Let me try that again." Take 2 went even further, almost to the chorus, but Elvis's voice gave out. He turned his back on the mic, shaking in the shoulders. Kathy Westmoreland started to cry. Even though she had sung with Elvis for years, she had never seen him look like this before. "Elvis," Felton said softly from the control room over the chain link. "Let's take a break. We can try this again tomorrow." Elvis said, "No," and he turned back to the microphone. "Tonight, we're going to do this. I need to get through it. Take 3. Have 4. Take 5. Every single one ended with Elvis sobbing because he was so moved. Some of the players looked at their instruments while others watched Elvis with sadness and worry. No longer was it about getting a perfect clip. This was about a man who tried to work out his problems through song but failed. After about 15 failed takes, Elvis told everyone in the studio except Felton to leave around 2 o'clock in the morning. He said, "I need to do this by myself." The musicians packed up reluctantly, each of them hugging Elvis before they left, telling him they loved him. Kathy gave him a kiss on the cheek and said, "We're proud of you." Elvis couldn't say anything, so he just nodded. While Felton was the only one in the control room, Elvis finally made it big. He could be totally open and honest without the pressure of an audience, even if it was just a group of supportive friends. He played the piano, which was something he didn't do very often for recordings these days. On that take, his voice was raw, without any of the polish and performance that come with being a professional. It was jerky. It broke. Some words broke it. Yes, you can hear him crying. It's not a loud sob, it's just a quiet catch in his throat. Some of his words sound wet, and his breathing changes all the time. It was flawed, imperfect, and completely devastating. While he was listening in the control room, Felton Jarvis started to cry too. He had been a producer for decades and worked with some of the best singers in music history. But he had never heard anything quite like this before. There was no show here. This was a confession, a prayer, and a farewell all in one. There was a long pause after Elvis was done. Felton finally hit the button for the intercom. Elvis, that's the one. That's it. Elvis stayed at the piano for a few more minutes with his head bowed and didn't say a word. He finally got up and walked into the control room. His eyes were red and swollen when he got there. "Play it back," he told Felton. In the dark control room, they listened to the take together. Around the middle, Elvis started crying again, but he didn't tell Felton to stop the recording. Everything was heard by him. This raw, broken version of himself letting pain out through music and words. He slowly nodded when it was over. "That's the saddest song I've ever heard," he said, repeating what he had told Felton weeks before. But now the words had a different meaning because he could hear his own voice breaking down with emotion and face every regret and mistake. The song was even more sad now. It was now real. "Are you sure you want to release this?" Felton asked with care. "It's Elvis. This is very personal. Everyone will hear how much pain you're in." Elvis was still and stared at the tape loop slowly spinning for a long time. He finally said, "Maybe that's what they need to hear. Maybe they should know who I am besides the guy in the jumpsuit. I'm more than just rock and roll's king. I'm just a man who wants to go back and fix all the mistakes he's made." He stood up to leave, emotionally worn out from what had happened. He stopped at the door and turned to look at Felton again. He said, "Thank you for letting me say that. Took care of it." People who were there will never forget that recording session. A lot of the players who had seen the early takes talked about it in whispers in the months after, before Elvis's death in August of that year. That's when they saw their friend, boss, and hero at his most basic. Elvis Presley stopped being a star that night and became a normal person. Professional Elvis